Hello everybody, my name is Luis. I'm the director of Bilingual Broadway. Welcome back to my YouTube series. I'm so glad you're back. The first video, we went over the essentials of how to pick a show or a musical for your program. If you haven't checked it out, please do so. I'll make sure to link it below. Today, we are going to talk about sound. I know it might be a little bit weird that we are starting with sound, but in my opinion, sound is the most important thing in a show. I think that you can have a show with amazing costumes, amazing choreography, direction. The kids are doing great, but if you cannot hear them, and if you're in a big auditorium and there is nothing that you can do to make that sound clear or to make those words come through, your show becomes almost unwatchable. And I have seen that happen many times. So today we're going to talk about sound, specifically wireless sound. I'm going to give you some examples of some very popular wireless systems, and if you stick till the end, I'm going to show you my favorite budget wireless system at the moment. My goal today is to help you navigate some wireless sound systems, and at the very least to give you some vocabulary so that you can communicate with your team better, with your cast, and hopefully with your audio engineer. Now, I do want to say that this video is not for everyone. If you're here, I'm assuming that you are intending on using or have used some sound amplification, and maybe you've had some troubles. Or maybe you're planning to use some sound amplification for your future productions. But hey, if you're doing plays in a small black box and you're doing Shakespeare and you're good just projecting, go for it. I think that you should keep doing that if that's what's working for you. But if you're here, you're looking for some amplification. Also, if you're already an audiophile and like this is your jam, this is also not for you. This is a super basic intro for that teacher that's like a geography teacher and you want to do the after school musical, or you have a community theater and you just want to be able to have some microphones for your production, then this video is for you. Now let's get to some common mistakes. One I see all the time, and honestly I've been guilty of it too, is worrying about sound at the very end of the tech rehearsal process. We've all done it. I understand why. We all want to focus on the acting and the singing and the scenes and the beautiful costumes, but that could really set you up for failure there. So make sure that you're thinking about it at the very beginning of your production. Another common mistake that I see is people using these kinds of microphones and just lining them along the stage, maybe using 2, 3, maybe 4, and just kind of lining them across downstage and facing them towards their cast. And they think, well, that will pick up some stuff. That's not really gonna work. These microphones are meant to be used close to your mouth. And so these are not gonna be great for that. And honestly, you're not doing anything if you just place microphones along the edge of your stage. The other mistake that I see is the use of a lapel mic. Lapel mics are great, however, they're not great for like a musical for the purpose of this video. These sit too far usually from the mouth, and so then you have to turn them up, and the more you turn them up, the more likely you are to get some feedback, and these are just not great for a live theatrical production where you have a lot of microphones. So that's another common mistake I see all the time. And finally, a common mistake I see all the time is the rental of microphones, which in itself is not a bad thing. I actually think that can work in a lot of situations. However, if you rent them and your rental package does not include an audio engineer, or you choose not to include an audio engineer because you think you have someone who can run the equipment, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure there. So think about that too. In no situation should you be working on a show without somebody who knows audio. So an audio engineer is always going to be necessary. Let me say that again. An audio engineer is always going to be necessary. So with all of that in mind, today we are going to be talking about 3 different things. We are going to be focusing on headsets, transmitters, and finally receivers. And make sure you're taking note of these very specific names because again, this will help you better communicate with your team and with your cast. So the headset is the most visible. I'll put a picture here. We all remember Britney Spears in the 2000s with her headset and how iconic that was. So that headset is where the actor is singing or speaking into. And that headset is then hardwired into the transmitter, which looks like this. That's your transmitter or your body pack transmitter because it goes on your body. That body pack transmitter is then going to transmit the signal wirelessly to the receiver, which looks like this. So that receiver can be an individual receiver, meaning that it can receive one signal from one transmitter. It can be a dual receiver, which means that it can receive two different signals from two transmitters, or it could even be a quad receiver, which means that it can receive signal from four transmitters at the same time. How are we doing? Are you still with me? Just checking in. Okay, so keep those three things in mind. That's a headset, a transmitter, and a receiver. For today's video, that's as far as we'll go. We'll get into the rest of audio at another time in another video. So for a headset, you're looking for a couple of different things. You're looking for something to be sturdy, so it can go on the heads of actors. And because we're dealing likely with a lot of dancing and with a lot of movement, and we're dealing also with people changing costumes and maybe changing wigs, for a headset, we're looking for something that is really going to be secure. You're also likely looking for something to be low profile, meaning that it's not going to be too visible in a theater space, unless of course that is the look that you're going for. If you are fine with having more of that Britney Spears microphone, there are certainly options for that. And finally, in theater, you're likely looking for an omnidirectional microphone, meaning that it'll pick up all of the sound around the microphone, not just on the one side of it where the microphone is actually placed. Okay, so put headsets aside for a moment. Now let's talk transmitters and receivers almost simultaneously, because these two are the ones that are really working together. And this is the area where things can get a little tricky because you're dealing with wireless frequencies. Now, when it comes to frequencies, there are a lot of different kinds of frequencies, but depending on where you live in the world and where your productions will take place, some of them will be available to you and they will be free to use, and some other ones you're not allowed to use. Some frequencies include VHF, UHF, 2.4 gigahertz. You've probably heard of that one. We'll get to that in a second. 5 gigahertz and many more. Now, I'm not pretending to be an expert on frequencies. I think there's a lot of people, even here on YouTube, that know much more than I do, and you are welcome to go into a deep dive into what that means. But I'm just here to give you a sort of overview. Going back to that 2.4 gigahertz frequency for a second though, probably one you've heard of, which is actually the exact reason why I recommend staying away from it, generally speaking. That frequency is going to be very busy because it's used a lot. It's used in Wi-Fi. I understand it to be used for Bluetooth and wireless headphones and things like that. So it's going to be a very busy frequency. So generally speaking, I'm going to advise against using that frequency in your wireless audio system. So when it comes to transmitters and receivers, A, you want to make sure that the frequency that they use is one that is available, and B, and I learned this the hard way, you want to be able to change the frequency on your transmitter and your receiver. This is a feature that's usually reserved for higher end microphones. Why is that so important? Because if the transmitter and receiver that you're intending to use for your production is using a frequency that is already being used in your area for whatever reason, then it's going to give you a lot of trouble and it's eventually going to be useless. So you want to be able to change to another channel or another frequency. Things that could be using that wireless frequency include radio signals, walkie-talkies, anything that is wireless, Wi-Fi, all of it can get in the way. And so again, you want to be able to say, that's being used, let me change to this other station or this other frequency. So with that, for our purposes, I'm looking for a couple of things in the wireless system that I use for microphones. I'm looking for ease of use, especially if I'm going to be having students or young people use it. If I'm going to have a hands-on kind of program, I need to be able to teach them how to use it, and it needs to be easy enough and intuitive enough that it makes sense. I'm also looking for function. Does it sound good? Is the sound clear enough that we can understand the actor or the singer that is performing? What's really funny about microphones too is that if they work well, No one's gonna notice. No one is gonna say, wow, you know, the sound was really amazing. I mean, most people at least won't. But if it starts failing, if you start to hear feedback or whistling or there's buzzing or there's humming or the mic turns off, everybody notices immediately. And again, your show can become unwatchable very quickly. Again, I'm looking for a wireless system where I can adjust the frequency. That's gonna be very important. And finally, generally speaking, and in my opinion, I'm going to stay away from that 2.4 frequency. Are we good so far? Hopefully this is helpful. If any questions come up, go ahead and drop them in the comments below and I'll get to them and I'll respond to them as best as I can. Now I'm going to give you some examples of some systems that meet all of these requirements. And I'm even going to include their pricing. Okay, so now I'm gonna walk you through a couple of systems. I'm gonna have a high tier, a mid tier, and a budget tier, and I'm going to share who I think that wireless system is for. And with all of these, I'm gonna give you a total cost for miking 8 actors. Okay, let's start with the high tier. And I'm gonna be looking at my notes because there's a lot of letters in this. Let's look at the Shure ULX D4Q-GV. This is a quad receiver, so it's going to receive signal from 4 different transmitters at a time. Coming in at a cute $6,776, and that's just for the receiver. In addition to that, you would need the body packs. In this case, they would be the ULX D1 body packs, which each of them come in at $595. Finally, you would need the Shure omnidirectional headsets, the DHS, which come in at $439 each. So to mic 8 actors, you're looking at $21,824, which of course is a lot of money. Now, who's this for? I'm gonna say this is for a professional regional theater, or if you're working in a school with a lot of resources and you just happen to have just a cute $25,000 to spend on an audio system, knock yourself out. And by the way, that's not totally uncommon. This system is gonna be completely solid though. You should have no problems with signals. You should have no problems with frequency at this price range. It is well built. The body packs are gonna be solid. You should be able to just drop them and nothing's gonna happen to them. I can't say that for sure. Sure, let me know if I'm right. So with this one, if you have a grant for equipment that you need to use, knock yourself out. Now for a mid-tier system, we're staying with the Shure brand. Let's talk about the SLX-D4QDAN, which is another quad receiver system. Again, it's going to receive signal from 4 different transmitters and it includes the 4 body packs. I've worked with this system before, super solid, no complaints. With this one, again, you're going to need those Shure headsets, which come in at $439 each. So to mic 8 actors with this system, you're looking at a total of $12,566. So who is this for? I think that if you're a very serious theater program and you have the budget to do something like this and you need to mic a lot of actors, this is gonna be a great option. It's gonna be solid. Again, I've worked with these microphones before. No drop out of sound, super easy to use. Can you afford something like this? To mic 16 actors, you're looking at well over $25,000 for this system. I know children's theaters companies that's their entire annual budget for operations. So while it's a great and highly recommended system, it's not gonna be in everybody's budget. Now let's get to my budget option, and this one I'm super excited to share because I actually own these microphones. So these are the Phenyx Pro PTU 7004B, coming in at $319 for a quad receiver. So again, it's going to receive signal from 4 different transmitters, and it includes headset microphones and lavalier microphones. Again, those lavaliers, they're not really gonna be useful for our purposes, but it's nice that they come in a package. Now these microphones are fairly new to me, but I have tested them, I have used them, and I'm going to use them again in about a week and a half for a performance that we have. So this is the receiver, super sturdy. This thing, I mean, I'm not gonna like bang it against the wall, but this thing is super sturdy. You have a gain or volume for each of your different channels. And again, the super cool thing about this model is that you're able to change frequencies, which is not usually found at this low of a price point. I've had a lot of success miking 8 people at the same time with this thing. Maybe I'll do another video and I'll do like a sound sample or something like that. If you're interested, drop a comment below. But this receiver is super solid. There's a lot of creators on YouTube that have more detailed reviews on this thing. I'm just letting you know, for a budget wireless microphone system, this is gonna be a game changer for children's theaters, schools, and community theaters, I think across the country. Honestly, across the world. The body pack is super easy to use. Again, you can change the frequencies on here. It has a mini XLR for your headset input, and it takes your regular AA batteries. The one thing I'm not loving about this is the way that this closes. I feel that this closing hatch could be designed better. So Phenyx Pro, if you're listening, that is definitely a place where you can improve. For our purposes though, and for a budget transmitter, this thing is solid. And going back to that battery hatch thing that I'm not loving, let me tell you why that also maybe doesn't matter that much. If this thing were to break because a child stepped on it or someone used it roughly or something like that, this transmitter you can buy separately for $50. You can buy this for $50. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna buy 2 more of these that I'm gonna have just as a backup, so that if anything happens to a transmitter, either leading up to the show or maybe even during the show, I'm gonna have a backup for $50. You can't beat that, you guys. And finally, let's talk headset. This thing is pretty solid. I mean, especially if you can like pin it on the head, and these like keep their shape, so that's gonna be super helpful for your performances. Can you do a full show like this? Absolutely. When I did Xanadu, these were the kinds of microphones that every single actor had, and it kind of worked with the show to have this kind of look anyway. And yes, these are totally usable. I mean, I can literally move around and it's not gonna move, so that's super helpful. For me though, I'm gonna upgrade these, mostly because, going back to what I said in the beginning of this video, for theater, we really want that omnidirectional mic that can take the sound from all sides. And these mics right here are unidirectional. So the microphone is right now pointing towards my mouth, which is perfect. However, if it were to move for whatever reason during the show, let's say for whatever reason it goes down like that, then I'm not gonna be able to hear that actor. And so that's the reason, just for ease and for comfort of everybody involved, I'm going to upgrade these to some omnidirectional microphones. I will likely do the Behringer omnidirectional microphones, which are right here, and these cost $47. So I'm going to upgrade 8 microphones for $376. That means that I'm miking 8 different actors, young actors, for $1,014. You cannot beat that. Hello. So who is the Phenyx Pro PTU 7004B for? I think that if you are a community theater or you are doing a school play or children's theater of any kind, this is going to serve you perfectly and it's going to get the job done. Now, am I saying that it's the same thing as that high tier or that mid tier microphone? No, that would be crazy. It's literally a $20,000 difference to the high tier microphone and like an $11,000 difference to that mid tier microphone. So no, it's not going to be the exact same. But again, for this channel, if you are doing community theater school plays, this is going to serve you just fine. And Phenyx Pro, if you're listening, if you can make an omnidirectional, low profile, budget headset, I will buy you out. Especially if you are able to be inclusive with your color selection, and we can have some deep browns and some caramels and some soft beiges. That would be an absolute game changer. And I'm telling you, it would be the preferred microphone for low budget community theaters and school productions all over the country. So Phenyx Pro, if you're listening, please consider that. I'll finish out by repeating that you should be working with an audio engineer for all of your shows. The investment is absolutely worth it. and it could be the thing that makes or breaks your performance. When it comes to sound, make sure that you have a plan from the very beginning and that you've done a little research. I hope this video has been helpful to you. I hope you feel a little bit more comfortable talking about wireless sound systems. And again, if you have comments or questions, drop them in the comments below. This video is actually inspired by my friend Matt, who is producing Susical Jr. with a middle school in New Jersey. And he reached out and he was like, I have no idea what I'm doing with sound. And so I hope this has been helpful. See you at the next one. Bye.